If you want to get jacked like Fred Rollon, embrace the century-old workout using classical equipment, the chest expander. I've been using this device for almost a year now and can confidently state it's changed my life. And I believe anyone who trains at home should own one. It is the best pec deck replacement. Among many other exercises that I'll be showing today, the versatility is unmatched, not to mention the effort. Check it out. Grinders like you've never seen before. I am straining my life away. It feels like I'm gonna have an aneurysm or pass out. But it's all good. Just gains, especially in the yoke and arms. So here we got 7 springs, got 6 repetitions. A couple months ago, 2 was my best. So I've been getting stronger consistently, and guess what? It shows in my traps. So I highly recommend you give this exercise a shot. It is #1 for overloading. So we're doing top set, back down set, 7, 6. Here I get 14, and then a little cheat, 15 if you want to call it. But either way, anyone who owns a chest expander or attempts this workout will know these are serious numbers. Most advanced lifters cannot expand these springs. I'm telling you that's a fact. Because I wasn't able to, and I was damn near pressing 400 pounds. So don't think for a second you need fancy equipment. And this right here is also going to hit your triceps because of that lateral pressure. So it's going in order of most difficult to easiest. This way we can challenge all the joint angles and change the muscular bias ever so slightly, like you're seeing right here with the underhand vertical pull apart. This is much harder. Typically 1 spring down. So just go to failure again. 0 to 2 reps from reserve. That's all we're hitting for today's session. And notice how we're not doing 3 sets of every exercise. It's not necessary. Already there's so much muscular overlap in the shoulders, triceps, and upper back that we can get away with a lower volume approach. But I'm still making you do everything for max results. Also, underhand will hit your grip a bit more. So I would say if it's really a problem, especially using those cheap expanders, maybe strap up. Because with my expander from Robert Baraban, shop.handgripper.net, it's all metal construction with steel handles that spin. So it's less likely that my wrist is going to cave in, which makes a big difference. Not to mention the stability is enhanced since it's slightly heavier. Either way, you'll be lifting about the same. Just that with your expander, you can't go beyond 5 springs, which is okay when you use mechanical drop sets, or the deeper you go into a session, you won't have to go heavy to begin with. So here I'm already down to 4 springs. As you can see, performance bleeds rather quickly, and I'm still pushing. You have to. I want to see those slow reps at the end. I know it's painful. I know you want to stop, but that's where the growth response is achieved. Keep in mind, a lot of these motions are demolishing the short arm position. So don't be skipping out on that when you have the potential. And then we hit the horizontal pull apart down to 3 freaking springs. Rear delts are getting pumped. You see the separation? This is what I was telling you about. That's your reverse pec deck alternative. And the triceps are also getting pumped. Look at that long head just hanging off. The meat. Crazy. By this point, I was already pumped to the max, but in a way, you can call it a simple warm-up for the next big exercise, the back press. Are you aware that this is a competition movement? Up until the mid-1900s in Britain, guys were competing in this, putting even higher numbers than what you're seeing here. 9, 10 springs, psychotic loads, which obviously would only be for a 1 rep max. And if these athletes primarily train with expanders, as in they barely use weights, I can imagine that high specificity, probably with refined technique, would allow them to put up that much. But for me, 7 springs is really heavy, and you know what I press. It's like a behind the neck press, but you're coming out to the sides, which is actually easier on the shoulder joint. So I'm not someone who can really tolerate a lot of wide grip presses. Or behind the neck, I tend to be a bit snappy at times if I overdo the volume. But with this exercise, no pain whatsoever. So I like the fact that the expander moves with your body. It accommodates and will also get heaviest towards the ends, not when your hands are completely crunched together. Therefore, shouldn't really cause any discomfort in the shoulders. Go heavy on those, and then immediately follow it up with sideways extensions, which is probably my favorite triceps isolation exercise with the chest expander. I would even say it rivals many weight training motions. It's basically a katana extension done with springs. It'll pump your long head like crazy, but at the same time, you get a nice squeeze at the end, which is unusual because typically it's just going to be the stretch and the lockout is not so much. Here you get both, and it's extremely friendly on the elbows. So just brute force it, you're going to love the contractions. Then we do a quick mechanical drop set, overhand. I only get 2 reps per arm. That's insanity. Notice how my elbows are up? You see the pump? I'd actually say this is better than doing a drop set that forces you to hit high repetitions. It's all about the effective reps. And after this set, my triceps had nothing left inside. Actually, they hurt the most in this entire session. Now for biceps, you know we have to curl, and the expander variation feels amazing. You get the peak contraction, grinding at the midpoint, and can angle the expander to the sides such that you're getting a biasing effect on that long head, not to mention being super easy on the wrist and elbows. I love this exercise, and if you're someone who struggles to push it to the limit with curls, which in my opinion is a huge percentage of gym bros, then this exercise will fix you right up. Now I use 2 expanders just to save time, but it would be the equivalent effect if you did each arm independently. I just don't want to do that since there's no chance of the handles hitting each other. And when you're trying to overload the curls, it's nice you don't have to double strain because as you can see, there's a whole bunch of it. Either way, biceps and forearms are starting to get really developed. And this has been one of my go-to builders, not only during my bulk, but throughout all these months of cutting. And it seems to me like I've maintained all of my bicep strength. Next, we got the reverse pinwheel curl. This will bias the brachioradialis, and because the handles spin, it's not going to feel awkward on your wrist. Actually, the contraction is 10 on 10. I'd say it's even better than a barbell reverse curl, including dumbbells since it never gets in the way. But the premise is the same. You want to be internally rotated, curling towards the other arm. I like wrapping my thumb around. Some guys prefer not to, but for me, the mind-muscle connection has always been best, and you see my forearms. They're truly getting pumped off this exercise. So we just drop it down by 1 spring. You'll still be able to lift decently heavy, and it's really going to finish off the rest of your arm, which keep in mind, you were gripping those handles throughout most exercise. So it's not like there was no work whatsoever. This is just the cherry on top. But yeah, for anyone who's suffering from golfer's elbow, this is a great remedy. And knees over toes guy would also agree. Because it's that braking mechanism and we're getting out of supination. Same reason why with hammer curls it tends to be easier on the elbows. But in full pronation like this, nothing beats it, honestly. So, not much to say here. I'm just getting my reps in. I always hate filming both sides because you gotta alternate. That's why I like to speed things up, not to waste your time. That's it for that. You gotta isolate your arms. I don't care which kind of athlete you are, what sport you're competing. If you care about hypertrophy, it's mandatory for hypertrophy. Finally, we end the workout with lateral raises. Notice how we're only down to 1 spring. This is probably enough for most of you, even though it wouldn't appear like much. So we're doing the exercise in the scapular plane. That means it's kind of like a Y raise. It's not directly out sideways. This gives you more range of motion and feels better on the shoulder joints. Now, you can also lean forward a bit more or do this with chest support. But for today's session, I decided to be somewhat upright, maybe with a very tiny lean, but you can experiment with the technique. My only criteria is that you're controlling the weight and going decently high. So it's not a traditional lateral raise. It's kind of like a hybrid between this and a Lou raise, since we are going above the shoulder joint, but that's what feels best for me with the expander. This is when the springs get stretched out enough that there's a lot of tension up there. And notice how it's a nice linear resistance profile. You'll definitely be able to grind through more of the joint angles since it's not just straight up gravity. So if you want 3D delts naturally, this is a must try. And know that the taller you are, the more difficult it's going to be. If you knew 2 springs, which is probably possible if it was just a shoulder day, that would be doable. But because we had all the expander exercises, yeah, you're not finishing with that. So more or less weight, I suppose. Either way, you should now be totally ready. So I hope you enjoyed this old school workout. Let me know if you want to see more like these, and I'll talk to you all in the next one.